I'm Anil Kumar, and in these set of videos I'm going to explore application of factoring with you. In this particular video we will learn why factoring is such an important thing to solve equations. Another thing which you're going to observe in these equations are they're kind of similar with one difference, which is going to teach you a lot about finding factors. Okay, let's start solving these questions. I'd like you to pause the video, copy these questions, try them on your own, and then look into my suggestion. Question is, solve the following equations. We have four equations here. The first one is x squared minus 5x plus 6 equals to 0. Second one is x squared minus 5x minus 6 equals to 0. Very similar, just with one difference. And we'll see how this difference gives rise to different factors. And then C and D is also similar. So we have x squared plus x minus 6 and then x squared minus 7x minus 6 equals to 0. So these four equations will be factored and observe how and why the factors are different. Okay, let's start with the very first one. Now, to factor a quadratic equation where the coefficient is 1, we are actually looking for two numbers, p and q, whose product is plus 6, right? So we are looking for two numbers. Let us say p times q should be equal to 6, and their sum, p plus q, should be equal to minus 5. So the two numbers are, so when you need product as positive, then the sign should be negative for both, right? Since the sum is negative. Okay, so the two numbers are negative 3 and negative 2, right? So that gives you the answer. That is, the answer is x minus 3 times x minus 2. Well, in the first case, let me include few more steps and then write the answer. So what we normally do here is we substitute minus 5x with these two combinations. So we write this as x squared minus, so we can write minus 5 as minus 2x minus 3x, and then we have plus 6 equals to 0. In the first two terms, x is common, right? So we can take x minus 2, and the next two terms, 3 is common. Let's take minus sign, and then we are left with x minus 2 equals to 0. Now x minus 2 is common, right? So x minus 2, you're left with x from the first term and minus 3 from the other term. Well, the result which I wanted to show you is that ultimately, if this coefficient is 1, what we get here is two factors, x minus 2 and x minus 3. So these two are these two numbers. Do you see that? P and Q, right? So two numbers p and q, when multiplied, should give you 6, and added should give you the coefficient of x. So in the factors, these are the two numbers which you see. Do you see that? Now the question here is, solve the following equation. To solve really means to find the value of x so that left side is equal to right side. Now right side is 0. When we factor, we know one thing, that the value of x which makes the factor 0 will solve the equation, right? Will make equation true. That means left side equals to right side. Now here we have two solutions. First is when the first factor x minus 2 is 0. So we can say x minus 2 equals to 0 means x equals to 0, right? The second one is x minus 3. That could be 0. That means x equals to 3. So x equals to 0 and x equals to 3 are the two solutions, right? So you see the application of factoring. Factoring helps to find solution of equations. So these are the two solutions of equations, correct? So that's the basic with which let's move on. Let me do the next question now for you, which is x squared minus 5x minus 6 equals to 0. This time we are looking for product of numbers which should be negative 6, right? So that means p times q should be equals to minus 6, and their sum should be also negative. sum is also negative and negative 5. Now in this case, since the product is negative, one of the number is going to be positive, the other one will be negative. And the number with higher value should be negative, correct? So in this case it is minus 6 and 1. When you combine them, in that case you get, I should have written the sum as minus 5, correct? So these are the two magic numbers which will help us to factor the equation. As you saw last time, we now understand that we could directly write the factors for this equation, and the factors are, or the two factors will be x minus 6 times x plus 1. So that is the left side equals to 0, right? So what I've done is gone straight from here to here. These two steps are not really required once you practice a lot, correct? Now when is this 0? This will be 0 when either one of these factors could be 0. So that gives us two different solutions. So that is when x equals to 6, the first factor will be 0, and when x equals to minus 1, the other factor is going to be 0. And therefore, our answer is x equals to minus 1 or 6. So there are two solutions to this particular equation. Do you understand? So factoring helps to find solution of equations. So let's do these two also. Again, factors for minus 6 whose product should be minus 6. That's what we need, right? And the sum in this case should be equals to plus 1, right? So the two numbers could be 3 and 2. 3 should be positive and 2 should be negative, correct? To give you the answer. In this case, we are looking for a product which should be minus 6, right? So minus 6 and sum is minus 7. So let me write P and Q first. Their product as minus 6 and sum as minus 7, right? So can you get these two numbers? To get 6, we need to multiply 3 times 2, right? Now 3 times 2 is minus 6, but minus 6 is always possible if one of them is negative, right? 6 times 1 is also going to give us 6. So there are two possibilities. Either we could go for 6 times 1 or we could for 3 times 2. But in either case, if you want negative, one of them should be negative. So if you make the bigger number negative, and when you add them, you do not get minus 7. Do you see that? You do not get minus 7. Therefore, this equation cannot be factored, right? So this equation, let us write, cannot be factored. Well, normally when we are solving equations, we say solve the equation by factoring if possible, right? Now in such cases where it cannot be factored, you can use quadratic formula, correct? So we are not getting in there, but at present, let's say solve the following equations by factoring if possible. So I think that's an important change to understand the concept, since we are trying to use only factoring to solve these equations, right? I hope you appreciate it. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. So the next question is, the previous one, we need two numbers whose product is minus 6, it could be 3 and 2, and the sum of 1, that is possible. So this could be factored, and of course the answer will be 3 and 2. So we have x plus 3 times x minus 2 equals to 0. And the solution is x equals to minus 3 or plus 2. So these are the two solutions for the given equation. Is that okay? Now, this equation could have been factored if we had, instead of minus 6, plus 6 here, right? So there could have been a typing error. Let me change this question now. Let me write this as x squared minus 7x plus 6 equals to 0, right? When this becomes negative, then the both numbers could be negative, right? That is to say, it could be factored by writing x minus 6 times x minus 1 equals to 0, right? In that case, the solution is x is equal to 6 or 1, correct? So that gives you the solution, provided the question would have been minus, this should have been plus 6, right? So that is how we could factor it. But in case we have a question like this, that cannot be factored. So that's kind of an important thing to understand. Now I hope with this example you understand a couple of things. That is to say that when you have a product of numbers, right, and if this is positive and the center number or the coefficient of x is negative, in that case their sign has to be same, right? Correct? Positive you can only get when they have same sign. Since this is negative, both will be negative, correct? But if this is negative, then they have opposite signs. Do you see this? These are opposite signs. Since the coefficient of x is negative, the bigger number should be negative, right? So that is something which you should observe while doing these questions, right? I could have changed this question even by writing this as x squared minus, instead of minus, let me write 7x plus 6 equals to 0, right? If I write all positive, in that case both my factors will be positive, right? So let me write down solution for this one also here, just to give you a variety. That will be x plus 6 times x plus 1 equals to 0. So both will have same sign, correct? So, and both will be positive in this case. So go through this example, try to understand how the factors are related with the coefficients. I hope that helps. Thank you and all the best.